thresholds, or the way we use them in business, are a kind of target, really. They're setting bounds or zones within which we want our KPI to be, because that means good performance. And when it falls out of those zones or outside the thresholds, we say that performance is not good enough. It can be used in any situation for any kind of KPI, really. It doesn't really matter what the KPI is. I'm going to demonstrate it today using a KPI for my motorcycling skill, which is my U-turn radius on this Ducati Supersport. My thresholds, if you like, we could use these car parking bays in front of me as thresholds. Now, I know that some of the best skilled motorcyclists in the world can turn a bike comfortably inside of 2 of those car parking bays. I can't do that, especially on this sport bike. It's harder to turn. The turning circle's smaller because the bars will hit the tank before I'm at a tight enough turn radius for the bike, and also I just didn't practice after I got this bike. I got lazy, and now my U-turns, well, we'll find out, but I'd be surprised if I can turn this bike inside of 3. I'd say I think I could do it inside of 4, but inside of 3 would be a challenge. Inside of 2, well, that feels pretty much impossible, especially right now today. So thresholds then are kind of like the number of car parking bays that I can turn inside of. And let's say that if I could turn it inside of 2 car parking bays, that would be the green zone of the KPI threshold if you want to use traffic lights. Let's say that 2.5, maybe 3 bays is yellow, so it's kind of acceptable, but it's not awesome. And outside of 3 is the red zone. That's bad performance. If I can't turn the bike inside of 3 car parking bays, that pretty much means I couldn't do a U-turn on a normal suburban small country road street kind of thing, which is useful to be able to do. So the thing is, just because I might want to turn in 2 car parking bays, it doesn't mean I'm going to be able to. It's my skill, my knowledge of what I need to do. I'm definitely a bit tighter turning with the left direction rather than the right direction. But it's a combination of things, and until I understand it all and practice it all and make it routine, I'm never going to get within my green thresholds. It's always going to be in the yellow or the red in the case of that one. Our capability doesn't change just because we tighten our thresholds. We have to do work to be capable of better performance. And thresholds, especially if we do things like just compare every single KPI value with the threshold, like if I compared every single U-turn with the car parking bay widths, I'm just going to get frustrated and demoralized. What I need to do is figure out something to practice and make myself better. We can't really claim success if we get our KPI within the green range of the threshold once. You know, you kind of need to be able to do it with some consistency. So I want to understand my baseline, like where can I consistently do U-turns? Where's my radius consistently? So maybe let's just say 10 U-turns in a row, and the average of that is pretty much where my current capability is. Let's find out. Well, that was pretty disgusting. I'd say my current capability is probably in the red zone of these thresholds for my U-turns. So what? Well, I guess this kind of brings us to the purpose of any KPI, which is to encourage and drive improvement. So I've got to figure out what I need to change to improve my U-turn radius. Just having the thresholds there is not helping at all. I know where I want the U-turns to be, and now it's just a case of measuring where they actually are and are they improving and changing over time. So it's going to take more than just today to get better at it. But there are a couple of techniques I know that I could start practicing more deliberately. One is counterbalancing when I turn it, which is particularly important on a sport bike because you just don't have the handlebar turn radius. So I've got to be able to counterbalance because I have to use the bike's lean to make the turn, not turning the bars. Another thing I could practice is just simply turning my head and looking more where I want to go. So I might play with both those things and see if that makes a difference immediately, but I don't think it will. That's the thing about improving any kind of KPI. You don't just make changes that can happen overnight. I mean, sometimes you can when you're just correcting a mistake, but if it's something that you just don't already know how to do really well as a baseline, then it does take time. It takes time to learn the new thing, introduce the new system, redesign the process, whatever. And that's where I'm at with this. This is not going to be overnight quick improvement. Well, I don't think that probably looked a great deal different, but I tell you what, it did feel different. I was a bit focusing probably more on turning my head and a little bit more counterbalancing. And I think even if the turns weren't tighter, they definitely felt a bit easier and smoother. So there's progress there. I'm not sure if you could pick it up on the time lapse, but there's my honest feedback to you. It's going to take practice, and I'll go back to the routine that I had where I would practice twice a week in the car park. And I think I'll see improvements. And, you know, even if I never get to turn this bike inside of 2 parking bays, it really doesn't matter. I just want to keep improving and get as close to that as I possibly can. And then what that might mean is that realistically, for the KPI that I have for U-turn radius, maybe 2 parking bays is just too much of a stretch target, and it's not that important. The more important thing is the outcome that I really want, which is to be able to turn the bike on a typical suburban street or a country road. So I think we have probably way too much attention on thresholds and adding them to every KPI chart in every dashboard, and give them a lot more of our attention than they deserve for how much they really don't help us improve performance. Our attention more should be on where our current capability is and continually improving that. And fine, if it helps to set some kind of a target just to be playful or to create a bit of stretch and a bit of urgency toward making improvements, then fine. But to make it such a strong, visual, powerful, dominating thing on every KPI graph, I think can lead us more to frustration than to improvement.